Wednesday's episode of the originals finally featured the moment fans have been waiting for all season. The Mikaelsons were reunited and the curse keeping them apart was lifted. Except that it took until episode 8, and a major character death for this to finally happen. It turns out that the answer was right in front of them the entire time. The now teenage Hope simply reabsorbed the full power of the Hallow. As established during Season 4, the Hallow should destroy Hope, hence why the curse to split it was needed in the first place. But seeing as Hope is set to be the star of the spin-off Legacies this fall, she is going to survive. So, this past episode seems to possibly be setting up the return of Hope as the Hallow as the final big bad. However, there are absolutely no stakes to that storyline. The fanatical vampires are also still out there as a threat. Without Elijah and the Mikaelsons actually being able to be in the same place without causing biblical-like plagues to destroy New Orleans, Greta's vampires really don't stand a chance. For a second, it looked like they might actually pose a really threat to Klaus and Hope. After all, Greta is responsible for Haley's death, a great twist ruined by a social media post from the writer's room last summer. It also looked like Elijah might end up being the original's final villain. That path ended in this week's episode when Elijah got his memory back and ended things with Antoinette. As great as it is to have the old Elijah back, it is hard to tell where the final season goes from here. It would have been a much better move if the Mikaelsons were reunited much earlier in the season. The premiere could have been Freya and Hope finally figuring out how to reunite their family after 7 years of working on it. By episode 2 or 3, the curse is lifted and maybe that is when Greta arrives to get her revenge on Klaus. Greta clearly had powerful witches working for her as she had someone to bind Haley's werewolf side. A spell that opens up a whole new can of worms when compared to what was established about that spell in Season 2 of the Vampire Diaries. So, even without Hope putting her mother under a sleeping spell to see Klaus again, Greta could still have found a way to kidnap Haley. That whole aspect of the season could have played out the same way. Only without a 15-year-old feeling the guilt of being a big reason why her mother died. And without having to ruin Elijah's character. Sadly, that is not the final season of the originals fans got. Instead, it is another disappointing ending in the TVD universe. Really, the only thing this season has added to the TVD universe so far is that no teenager in this world is allowed to have 2 living parents. Luckily, there are still a few more episodes for the originals to get back on track. Last year, The Vampire Diaries ended strong after a weak rest of its own final season. Hopefully, the same will be true of the originals. And for all of its problems this season, it is not as bad as the weakest seasons of The Vampire Diaries. Season 5 just isn't as strong as past years.